Hi, it's Dave. Today, Tesla announced their Q4 2019 deliveries, and it smashed expectations. It was fantastic. Tesla delivered 112,000 cars in Q4, and the stock shot up today, and Tesla closed on record highs. And it's been quite a ride for Tesla shareholders in the past few months. Finally, Tesla is like hitting its stride. It's finally getting like win after win after win. It's amazing, like previously, if you're following the stock from 2013, 2018 or so, in that 5-year period, Tesla was able to do like a win here, and then they would like fall back. They might have one profitable quarter, and then they couldn't, put together a string of wins. And I think this is a turning point. Q3 of last quarter was the major turning point where they finally showed that they realized their operating expense reductions, and they finally were able not just to turn a profit, but show a financial statement that shows like this is sustainable long-term profit for this company. And even with just Model 3 S and X, but just US production. So this isn't even including China or future Europe. Just with US S, X, and 3 production, Tesla is basically showing themselves profitable. And that was a breakthrough moment in Q3 of last year. Now, what's going on with Q4 and these deliveries is Tesla is taking it up a whole nother level. They're saying, hey, we're not messing around here. We're actually ramping up our productions and scaling up. And so I want to go over a few things in this press release that Tesla released today. So the first thing is that Tesla delivered 112,000 cars versus 97 cars in the previous quarter, Q3. So that's about 15,000 car difference, and that's actually really significant. Now, if you break down the numbers, let's say 15,000 extra cars. Now, this is a mix of Model 3, S and X. So if we just do a rough figure of 50,000 average sales price, it's going to be higher than that, but probably 50,000 hypothetically. Times that by 15,000 extra cars they sold in Q4, that's about $750 million in extra revenue compared to revenue in Q3. Now, if you take just, conservatively 20% of gross margin off of that 750 million extra revenue, in this quarter, you get about $150 million in gross profit. But remember this, in Q3, they already had covered all their expenses with their gross profit from 97,000 cars. So with the extra 15,000 cars, this extra $150 million in gross profit is going to just go straight pretty much into net profit. And so whatever Tesla was able to achieve in Q3, theoretically, Tesla can beat that by at least $150 million net profit, which would be a major shocker. And this is, again, a whole string of, wins by Tesla that started with Q3 of last year. And this is also fueling this whole not just a mood change around the stock, and not just all-time highs. If you haven't checked out my video, check out the whole video of Tesla breaks 400 and why I don't care. I kind of share how I believe this was actually the big kind of investor sentiment tipping point, Q3 of last year, and now we're just reaping kind of that whole sentiment change right now with the big money investors. The second thing I want to point out about this press release here is that Tesla delivered or produced 87,000 Model 3s. Compare that to the previous quarter, which is a little under 80,000 Model 3s. So they have ramped Model 3 production about 7,000 extra cars compared to the previous quarter. Now, this is interesting because supposedly Tesla also shipped extra battery packs to the Shanghai Gigafactory, and it's unclear exact number, but it's probably up to 5,000 battery packs. We're not sure again the exact number, but in that case, Tesla could have made probably a bit more Model 3s at Fremont if they didn't ship these battery packs to Shanghai, but because they did, they still were able to increase Model 3 production at 87,000. Now, this is bullish again because at 87,000, let's say it's about 90,000 times that by 4. That's a 360,000 Model 3 run rate. Add 150,000 to China, so you get 500,000, right? That's the run rate that Tesla is, they haven't achieved that in China yet, but that's, the goal for this upcoming year. But you've got the 500,000 Model 3s already, in 2020 being realized. And this is even without the Gigafactory in Europe, will also be producing a significant amount of Model 3s. Now, this is again bullish for Tesla. I believe the main kind of restriction for the Model 3s has been the battery cells. There's been kind of, as many of you know, a rocky kind of ramp with the cell production. And I believe Tesla still is finding some restrictions. We know recently that word leaked that Panasonic has upped their commitment to go from 35 to 54 gigawatt hours at the Gigafactory in Reno, and that's good news. But the big question kind of for 2020 is, with the Model Y ramp, it's not so much how many Model Ys that they can sell, because the demand is there, right? I mean, if you're gonna be able to sell, 500,000, let's say Model 3s, or the demand is there for that, there's gonna be, I think, a greater demand for Model Y. And so they're gonna sell out any and every Model Y that they make in 2020. The only question though is how fast can they increase and ramp cell production to support the ramp for Model Y? See, Model Y in a lot of ways, it has so many, similar parts to Model 3. I believe it's going to be made on the same production line. And I've sat in the Model Y, 2 times, and it just feels almost exactly like the Model 3. I mean, I cannot understate that. It's like literally, it almost feels like the same car inside. I think that's kind of the ramping advantage Tesla's going to have with the Model Y. And with the Model Y, I think it's going to be the smoothest ramp so far of any of the cars that Tesla produced, because simply it's like so similar to the Model 3 in a lot of ways. And 2020 is going to be a fantastic year, I believe, for Tesla, because the Model Y is just going to add incremental income, whatever they can produce. So anyways, I'm watching out for cell production, and hopefully we'll get some big news from Elon and his team at the Battery Investor Day, hopefully within a couple months. We'll see. There's a chance that for Q4 earnings, which is usually the last week of January, so within probably 3 weeks or so, Elon might announce that they're going to have a Battery Investor Day, maybe in February. If not, then it might be a few months after that, maybe right after Q1 earnings in late April or May. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is China Gigafactory. Now, in this press release, Tesla says that they've produced just under 1,000 customer vehicles in Shanghai, and they have demonstrated production run rate capability of greater than 3,000 units per week, excluding local battery pack production, which began in late December. Now, let's dissect this a bit. They made 1,000 cars. They eked out, some deliveries, which, they hit their goal. Some people were, again, what's interesting is some people are just so excited about the company, which I completely agree with. I'm excited, but you've got to take some of these expectations with a grain of salt. There were some leaked, articles about Tesla, making cars like back in October, and people were expecting thousands and thousands of deliveries this year. But I was kind of like telling people, hey, that's way out of line, because, according to the people I've talked with, basically Tesla's expectation was, to start production by the end of the year, meaning their timeline was actually the end of the year. And it wasn't something that they were expecting to hit way before that. There's a humongous amount of complexity with setting up an entire new production line in a foreign country, etc., that, the best case scenario really was Tesla to produce and deliver cars right before the end of the year in December, which they did and they accomplished. So here's how I look at kind of the ramp in Shanghai. The ramp in Shanghai is taking place in stages. So the first stage kind of for the first batch of cars is Tesla shipping the whole battery pack. And the rest of the production is happening in-house. I kind of wonder, and I haven't confirmed this or not, but you can put in the comments if you've heard anything. I kind of wonder if they also are shipping the motors, as well. So the majority of the drivetrain. The rest of the body in white and the paint job, all the assembly and stuff, I believe is happening in Shanghai. But yeah, the battery pack and maybe the motors, I think they're shipping, probably a few other components. And what's happening is, over time, Tesla's goal is to remove that dependency from getting shipments from the US. And they're doing that in stages. And the first stage is they're going to start battery pack assembly, in Shanghai, probably with cells that are shipped from the Reno Gigafactory or from elsewhere. And then what they're going to be doing is they're going to, over time, over the next several months and into 2020, they're going to be shifting cell production, into kind of local sources. So they're going to get local sourced battery cells. They're probably not going to make the battery cells in 2020 in China, obviously, but they're going to probably get these locally sourced cells, which they probably have already validated. They already have these contracts, already set up and stuff. And then they're going to start to take the cells locally sourced in China and make the complete battery pack. And that's kind of the goal in 2020. And probably if they haven't already, they're going to start making the motors as well in 2020. And so the whole goal is to, in 2020, as they ramp up to 3,000 cars per week, which is 150,000 run rate in 2020 in Shanghai Gigafactory. The idea is they will incrementally shift the last remaining parts of production into more of a local production. And as they do that, they're going to be able to reduce the costs of the car because it's going to be cheaper, locally sourced battery packs and everything. And by doing that, they can pass along the savings to people in China. Now, some people have asked, like, hey, are they going to ship this China-made, car to any other countries? And Elon has mentioned this before. Yeah, it makes sense. China is going to be a hub, an Asia hub for sending these Model 3 cars to Asian countries, right? Because it'll just save in shipping costs. I also believe that, with Shanghai, they're going to probably, I think, have a long-range model released probably by the end of the year, in my opinion. And they're going to also, start Model Y production. I'm unclear exactly when or, how they're going to do that. But that's coming up, and that's just going to increase the production rate in China. Now, for China overall, I'm bullish. Across the board, China auto sales for luxury brands are double than what they are in the US. And so the demand for luxury cars in China is humongous. And I think a lot of the thing is there needs to be a tipping point where people just become really infatuated and they just are won over by Tesla. And I think the price point is going to be important, and also just having the adoption increase in China. I think we're going to see 2020 is kind of that breakout year for China. Now, exactly how many cars can Tesla make in China? The production process is extremely complicated, especially with hundreds and hundreds of suppliers. I remember at the investor day, I was briefly talking with one of the executives there, and he was saying that their goal with production in China is to get almost everything sourced locally. And he says, it's going to be an immense project because they have to create an entire new supply chain in China. Of course, initially, that's not the case. They'll probably, ship some of the most important components and stuff that's hard to do, but eventually they're shifting, their supply chain to locally made. And so the magnitude of the goals that Tesla has in China is not insignificant or minimal. These are massively complex logistical goals. And when Tesla has said there's this goal where they want to reach a 3,000 car per week run rate, which is 150,000 cars per year, I think that this is actually a very ambitious goal. It's not something that they're sandbagging actually for 2020. I think that's actually the goal that they want to reach. And so I think if you just look at the entire year, and I think it's always wise to be a bit cautious because there's so much complexity. Whenever there's so much complexity, there's always certain things that happen, a little bit late or go wrong, and you have to compensate. So my kind of estimate for 2020 for China is about 100,000 cars. I think they will reach that 3,000, car run rate in China in the second half of 2020. But I think the ramp is going to be a bit slow. It's not going to be right off the bat, like a few thousand cars a week or so, even though they claim that they've demonstrated that capability to actually reach that production results, that real 3,000 cars a week is going to take quite a bit of the time. So anyways, that's kind of the summary, version, just some quick thoughts that I want to share off the cuff regarding Tesla's Q4 delivery numbers. The next big event that we have for Tesla is the Q4 earnings report, which is going to happen probably the last week of January. And we have a few weeks until then. And I'll go ahead and probably share my thoughts. I don't know, maybe before that, but most likely after that as well. Go ahead and put in the comments any questions, share your ideas. We're building up a community kind of helpful people who are thinking a little bit deeper on Tesla and investing. And we're building up kind of a whole new, I don't say new, but we're building up what I'm hoping is a movement to really look at some objectivity with investing and to seek some big opportunities. My last thought I'll share is one of the reasons I got this channel going is because I kind of find myself in a position where, even though I find myself very objective and level-headed, and oftentimes I find myself as a cautious investor where I'm really, I'm thinking through things deeply. Yet I have this other side where I'm a big believer in big opportunities. And I'm a big believer that there are a lot of 10x opportunities out there in investing. This was something I believed many years before I even invested in Tesla and in some other investments, but also with Tesla, that's been kind of the main thesis is back when I invested when it was $30, I saw the progression and I saw what I thought was gonna be the most likely outcome, which was Tesla was going to survive and was going to release the Model 3 and reach at least a $300 price point, but within, maybe by 2018 or so. I mean, that was kind of like the 2012 investment thesis, a 10x investment thesis. And a lot of times I think investors and the whole investment culture is that, to go after 10x gains, it's almost like those are crazy people, who just are kind of wild and, just don't know what they're doing, emotional. But I think what I want to promote is kind of a level-headed, objective analysis, and deep thinking that pursues big opportunities, that looks for those 10x opportunities, let's say within 5 or 10 years, but does so in a rational, objective way. These opportunities are out there and they're there for the taking, and that's part of kind of the channel and the unique angle that I'm hoping to bring. So anyways, keep in touch, subscribe, please share this video if you can. That's the whole thing. When you share this channel or you share this video, that helps get the word out. It helps to encourage more videos to come. So share it on Facebook groups, on Reddit, on forums, with your friends, and pitch in, and we'll see this grow. Take care. We'll see you next time.